This is a study of physics. The traveler tries to get the cheapest deal, so they wait until the very end to get a last-minute deal that could potentially save him a lot of money. Will that myth hold up or will it get busted? This and many more in today's episode of the Travel Mythbusters. There's so many myths about traveling I could come up with. It was quite a challenge to just select a few so you wouldn't have to listen to me for 5 hours. The first one is something I have heard everywhere and from so many people. Whenever I tell someone I'm traveling on a budget or that I don't need to spend my yearly salary on a travel, they start ripping their hair off their heads, asking if I'm sleeping on the floor or in a carton box or if I'm eating out of the trash and so on. Because it's a common misconception that in order to travel on a budget you need to compromise on the comfort and you will be miserable. But is it really the case? If you're the Princess of Wales and if you're not sleeping in castles and be given all the food right in front of you and you're not carried in a sedan chair that makes you uncomfortable, it could mean that budget traveling is not for you and you need to spend half of the Great Britain's yearly budget on vacations. But if you're not a princess, it is actually possible to have amazing time not going broke. What can you get the biggest savings on? Flights, accommodation and food. For flights, if you plan it out wisely, if you watch my videos closely, if you don't just go to the airport like Chandler when he went to Yemen.
Hi, I need a fake ticket to Yemen.
Sir, a ticket to Yemen is $2,100 and we don't take library cards.
You can easily save 50% of the price you might be paying now. Same applies for the accommodation. It's a matter of what you really value, but for me the best deal is to have an apartment for few people with a kitchen, which saves a ton of money on restaurants, and you can usually get it much cheaper than a hotel room. But you need to do your beds by yourself. If that's a compromising on the comfort for you, I can't help, sorry. And then there's food, which I have just mentioned. Just cook for yourself from time to time. Myth busted. Then there's another myth that I've heard over and over. You know those young parents or old parents but with young kids? When they have a new kid in the family, slowly they are stepping back into the shadows of their own place, barely ever going out, not even mentioning traveling because it's too difficult. Is it though? If I told you it's not more difficult, that would be the biggest lie you ever heard, next to the one that tariffs are paid by China. It is more difficult, it is more expensive, it is more stressful. Why am I doing it really? I know it wasn't about whether it's more difficult, it was if it's too difficult. And the answer is definitely not. It's only a matter of preparation and handling your expectations. If you're just starting out to travel with kids, don't expect that it will be as it was in your days of freedom. You won't be partying all night, going on crazy cruises, meeting new people on every corner and enjoying the restaurants for hours. That's probably not going to happen, which doesn't mean you should just stay in a hotel at the pool and hope the kid doesn't drown. It will be a bit more difficult. The travel, restaurants, long walks, this all might look like a struggle, but honestly, what can happen worse? That the baby will start crying and everyone on the plane will hate you? Probably, but who cares? I think it's a great thing to do, to show the kids, even the smallest ones, the way how you want to spend time and also prepare them and yourselves for some discomfort. I think it will pay off and the memories will stay forever. And imagine that rest that you will have that you've deserved once you're back to work. Myth busted. Let's move on. Few more myths to debunk. When I tell people that I was traveling to Norway or to Switzerland or to Netherlands, they look at me and ask if I robbed a bank or won on a lottery. For some reason, no one expects that I could be rich because of hard work. But my answer was always the same. No, I'm still poor, but smart. And when the laughing ends, I can explain myself and tell them that you don't have to be rich to travel to expensive countries. Because it's a common misconception to prove wrong that you can't travel those places on a budget. Well, I can either just tell you to watch one of my videos where I'm showing how I traveled to Norway for less than $500, or explain why this is not true. And I will do both. So, I assume you've watched now the video. right? Although it was a quite radical budget version, it can be done anyways. There are dozens of ways to get cheaper flights. Nowadays, with budget airlines, it's super easy to get anywhere for a couple of bucks. Maybe without legroom, but who cares? In many cases, if you save on restaurants and some premium services like 5-star hotels, it won't cost you a lot if you know what you're doing. It is possible to travel on a budget to expensive countries as well. Myth busted. The next one is, from what I heard, an old people excuse for not traveling. Not that I expect all the people in the world to travel, just do whatever you want, but I've been hearing it a lot from my grandpa, and he would have traveled a lot if he just spoke languages. And because he doesn't, he watches TV all day long. Not sure how that's related, but never mind. And of course, this may apply to any person that would hesitate to go somewhere where the language is spoken that they don't understand. And honestly, this is understandable. Especially if your mother tongue is English, there's a lot of places where it's being spoken or where most people know it, like Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands. Maybe you learned a little bit of Spanish and that covers another 200 countries or so. So the ancestors of the Spanish and English people did definitely a good job to spread their languages, although some may find it controversial. But they were not 100% effective on spreading peace and knowledge. And there are still dozens of countries where other languages are being spoken and maybe even have different alphabets, which makes it even more difficult. So is it true that you can travel there if you don't know the language? Before I give you my answer, let me first tell you about a world-famous journalist and author, Ryszard Kapuściński. He started reporting from abroad in the 50s, and when I read about it, going to China without knowing one word, back then, like 78 years ago, that must have been really tough. But he managed, but he was something else. Nowadays, you have so many options, but most of them are just in your phone. Translation done on the go, translating from a photo, you name it. Also, recently, English has become so popular that many people can understand it around the world, especially in the tourism industry. And still, even without tools and being in a place where no one understands English, people get around. Maybe you will order cockroaches instead of beef, but besides that, you'll be fine. Myth busted. Now, the last one. And this is something that might get you in trouble, if it's not true. Are last-minute deals the cheapest? Let's investigate, but right off the bat I can tell you it depends. If we look at accommodation first, it can actually be true. The thing is that hotels and resorts prefer to sell the room cheaply rather than have it empty. But if it's a small town or a place where there's a major tourist attraction, it might happen that when you wait for the last-minute deal, you will have to sleep in a homeless shelter. Not advised, 3 out of 10. Because it all comes down to competition. If there are many hotels, the traveler would always have an option, and that means that there's a chance that they will still have few empty rooms that they will want to get rid of. And that's when your cheap ass can find a great deal. But if you hope the same works for flights, then no. Yeah, but what about competition? And this is the thing, there's not too much of it. If you have a flight from New York to Paris on August 1st, there's probably one airline going. So they know, these sneaky airlines, that there are always people that are late with buying tickets, and since they don't really have other options, they will get it last minute, so the airlines will charge more for it. Also, there's a lot more people than you think that don't really care about the prices. For example, doing business trips, that just decide to have a meeting the next day on the other side of the planet and just buy a ticket for 10k. And the airlines know there will be always people to buy those tickets to the very end. So the later you get them, the more expensive they might get. But it's not that easy. One does not simply walk into the internet and buy flight tickets. This is quite a complex process to actually find the best deals. But you're lucky, because you can just watch this video next and learn everything you need on where to get those flights almost for free. Myth semi-busted. Cheers, safe travels and do zobaczenia.